Hari Om. We are into the last, final, 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Having seen so far in chapter 17 that what really governs us, our actions, our reactions to people, objects, situations, our likes and our dislikes, our raga and dvesh, attachments and aversions, all this is governed by our guna. The guna, that quality of the mind or the texture of the mind which is created as sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. And we also saw so far in Gita, how is it created? How is it that we have become bound by it? Yes, my reactions sometimes are beyond my control because I am driven by the momentum of the past gunas which have been created from the past, and the gunas are in the present. Sattvic, rajasic and tamasic, we have seen, come from our karma. The kind of actions I choose, the kind of ambitions or passions I choose will make me, my ambition and passions will make me rajasic. And also if I choose right now and in the rest of our actions, if we choose the higher truth or silence or quietness or patience, that sattvikta will become a part of the nature and swabhav and vasana, as they call it. Vasana meaning the impression, and sanskar. This sattvic sanskar will also carry, and tamasic is when I'm too lazy to even engage in the world, but I want all the goods of the world on a platter. If somebody can just offer it to me, I'm just too lazy to make any sacrifice or any offering of my effort to the world, make a contribution to others. So that laziness, physical, mental, emotional, not offering anything is a tamasic quality. We saw that. If all this is coming from karma, then we come to the very crux, the very basis of Sanatan Dharma, and that is that our destiny, let's say, is actually governed by our karma. What is the kind of karma that I choose to do? If you go further back, then you'll see that why do I choose certain kinds of karma? It's because of certain thoughts that I entertain in my mind, which may be sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. Now, these thoughts are driving me into certain kinds of karma, passion or ambitious or materialistic or spiritual and quiet or offering or charitable or magnanimous. It depends on the thoughts that I entertain about people and objects and about the world. If the very crux of Sanatan Dharma now comes down to that our karma is driving our destiny. We know that because in the future that vasana will carry over through several lifetimes if we are not aware and mindful and alert and vigilant to make a change right now, right here. If we are not making a change and becoming aware that, oh, that's too tamasic or too rajasic or giving way to anger and desire and lobe or greed, any of these is causing rajasic behavior. If I'm not aware, my destiny is caused by my karma. My entire destiny is governed by my karma. That's the very basis and the crux of Sanatan Dharma. And the very fabric of our existence is what? From the time we wake up to the end of the day, we have to be involved in karma. We are doing something or the other. That's the very fabric of our existence. So, what are the kinds of actions that I must do now in order to transform my destiny? Because it's clear that actions or karma are forming my destiny. So can I use same karma as my tool to transform my destiny? So that's a tricky one. And Arjun starts with a very innocent question in the 18th chapter. We'll begin with his question first and then come back to how karma becomes a part of his question. Karma, action. Atha chapter 18 begins, and the title of the chapter is Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. That means the yoga of renunciation for liberation. Renunciation meaning giving up, tyag, for what? For the ultimate liberation. That is the last and final chapter. That is that moksha, mumukshutva is with you. That is the desire for moksha, liberation. From this recurring, this whole cycle of destiny which is created by karma, that final breaking of that cycle of janma bandhan and karma bandhan is liberation, moksha, and no more births. That liberation comes through renunciation, is the promise of chapter 18. And chapter 18 also functions as a recap of the entire Gita up to now. It functions as a recap because many of the concepts are repeated. Naturally, because these are the same concepts which will lead us to our liberation. So, Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, main title. Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Chapter 18, verse number 1. Arjuna Uvacha Sannyasasya Mahabaho Tattvamichhami Veditum Tyagasya cha Hrishikesha Prithakeshini Shudanaha Shudana. Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna asks Krishna, I desire to know right now. I have heard you right through 17 chapters. I want to know right now, he asked Krishna, O mighty armed one, what is the essence of renunciation? I know that the very chapter 5 is all about renunciation, but I want to know its essence once again, so that Arjun can see how he can finally apply it to his life. This is the recap he is asking for. So Rishikesha, Tyagasya cha Rishikesha, this abandonment, this renunciation, this tyag that you have been talking about, please tell me once again. Prithakeshini Shudanaha, with more examples, he says. Now, Bhagwan doesn't give direct answers. Very rarely does he do that. He says, I'm going to take you a step back and make you look at your karma first. How is that affecting you? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, verse number 2. Kamyanam karmanam nyasam sannyasam kavayo viduhu sarva karma phala tyagam prahustyagam vichakshanaha. Krishna says, before you hear my answer, Arjun, please listen. I have something to tell you about the opinions of many rishis and philosophers and wise people. And these wise people have differing opinions. So Krishna will give his final conclusion later. He says, some of the wise people say that you must renounce the karma itself. And some of the wise people say, sarva karma phala tyagam. Sarva phala tyag means renounce the entire work itself. That means don't do any karma, don't do any action, so that uska phal mujhe na lage, aur uska phal paap aur punya agar mujhe lag jayega, to I will be reborn and then I have to bhog. You have to be born again so that hum us phal ka bhog kare. That is the law of karma, karmic principle. So he says कि चलो कर्म ही ना करें, ऐसे कुछ ऋषि कहते हैं. But that of course is rubbish, because if we have no action, first of all, it's not possible for a human body not to act. Secondly, even if we were to do it, it would cause chaos in society. How can you not do any action? And some wise people say, Kamyanam karmanam nyasam. That's the first phrase in this shlok. It says, yes, you must do action. But in that action, can you please drop the desire for the phal of it? What have we come down to? Chapter 3 and one of the most quoted shlokas of Bhagavad Gita, which many people know, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Most people know only this one line, half a phrase, and they quote it all over the place. So that actually most people know because it's most popular. Why is it so popular? Because it is actually the crux of the karmic principle of Sanatan Dharma. And on that rests the entire evolutionary spiritual process of human beings, of degrading themselves in the evolution, or progressing in spiritual growth, or actually reaching moksha. It's that karma. Karman nevadhikaraste. Keep on doing the action, he had said. Ma phaleshu kadachana, chapter 2. Ma karma phal hetur bhuhu mate sangostva karmani. But if you are attached to that karma as my karma and the phal as my phal, that's where you are actually using that karma to bind yourself to pap or to punya, because pap and punya का भोग दोनों को करने आना पड़ेगा हमको यहाँ पर. So we have seen that even our gunas, the companionship that we choose, and the kind of charity or dan that we choose to do, the kind of tap that we choose to do. Tap meaning swadhyay, studies, dhyan, meditation, and jap, or even puja. Any of these tap that we choose to do or not choose to do. Both ways depends on our guna, and that guna is coming from how we have chosen to act. The action itself, Bhagavan says now, kamyanam karmanam nyasam. If it is dictated by desire, and what is our desire in most actions? If you look around, it is desire for self-gratification, for my pleasure, for my gain, for my naam, mera naam ho jaye, mere pratishtha ho jaye, ya mujhe kuch sensory, I should have some sensory pleasures out of it, whatever. But at the center of everything, it is me, self-centeredness in all our actions. Bhagavan, now Arjun's question is going to lead us to, is it possible even to do any action without that self-centeredness? Because naturally, what is my motivation? My motivation for everything I do, even at leisure or in society, or for my work, or the kind of profession, or social activities, environmental activities, doesn't matter. In all these activities, I have chosen some kind of desire at the end of which I'm expecting some self-gratification and or pleasure or naam, man, samman, whatever. So that karma now is going to drive me into good or bad result, because my desire is what is at the base of it. So karma by itself is not the culprit. Karma by itself cannot taint us, cannot drive us into heaven or hell. Heaven or hell, of course, symbolic way of saying asuri or sattvic daivi pravritti. It cannot. Karma by itself is just kriya. It's just an action. How can it have any quality of daivik or sattvic? What lends it the quality of daivik or sattvic is our intention, our motives behind it. Bhagavan says, kamyanam karmanam nyasam. Why don't you just drop the desire? No desire behind it, but the kriya goes on, is itself going to make that kriya into just kriya, not karma. It will become pure, purified. So it is, the culprit is our motive, our intention behind it. And so karma by itself cannot have its own guna. The gunas are ours. That is the karta, the ones who are kartas. Bhagavan says very easily, nyasam. Oh, you must give it up, renounce. But, when I renounce, I'm not even aware that I'm still talking about I am the renouncer. So there's the story of a seeker who goes to a master and he says, Swamiji, I have renounced my family and my job and my title and my position and my bangla. मैंने सब कुछ दे दिया, सब बांट बूट दिया, मैं आ गया हूँ यहाँ पर, बहुत दिन से यहाँ पर हूँ. कहाँ पे? हम अपने आश्रम में या किसी कोई कुटिया लेके पहाड़ियों में है. But where is my liberation? Swamiji says, अच्छा, that's a very good question. एक काम करो, whatever you have told me right now, you write it down. So the seeker writes down everything, and then when Swamiji looks at it, he says, in this text, every time there is a word I or my, you circle it out. And the words I and my, मैंने ये किया है, मैंने त्याग किया है, मैंने उसको अपनी गाड़ी और बंगला दे दिया है, मैं यहाँ आया हूँ, I need मोक्ष, and I और my, उसमें इतनी बात है, उसने सर्कल करते करते थक गया. Then Swamiji said, okay, do one thing, just try and reduce the I and my entries by half at least, or by 3/4. By that much proportion is your I-ness or my-ness, mamata, will reduce. So the thing is, it is so tricky that even when we renounce, we think that we are renouncing something of the world. How can we renounce something of the world when it doesn't belong to me? हम कहते हैं हम रेनाउंस कर रहे हैं, अरे लेकिन ये जो घर है ये हमारे या फिर उसकी सामग्री जो है सीमेंट एंड मोटर एंड ब्रिक्स एंड ऑल, इट एग्जिस्टेड बिफोर आई वाज हियर. व्हेन आई एम गॉन फ्रॉम हियर, व्हेन आई एम डेड फ्रॉम दिस अर्थ, the house will continue to exist. The people I leave behind will continue to exist. The job and positions and the companies that I am leaving, मैंने तो त्याग कर दिया, जो धन बैंक में, it will all continue to exist. It was there before I came, it will be there after I am gone. फिर भी हम कहते हैं मैंने renounce किया. हम अपने को renouncer कैसे कह सकते हैं? What is not mine, I cannot even renounce. So Bhagavan said, first of all, this Swami actually, not Bhagwan, Swami said, first of all, make sure that you renounce the I. ये चीजें जो आप renounce कर रहे हो ना, उसमें कोई मतलब नहीं है. मैंने त्याग किया है, उसका मैं का त्याग कर दो, ममत्व, ममता का त्याग कर दो, बस. You are at the end of the story. It's as simple as that. And so that's why the same thing applies to karma. मैंने ये किया है, मैंने वो किया है, और ये सब कर्म के साथ जो हम अपनी ममता, मेरापन जो जोड़ लेते हैं ना, मैंपन, that is making the karma ashuddha. Let's call it ashuddha for the moment, because it is because the result of that karma, which is desire driven, मैंने किया है, ममत्व, is bringing to me anger if it's not the phal I wanted, and it's bringing to me frustration if it's not the phal I wanted. It's bringing to me lobh if it is the phal I wanted and I want more of it. It is bringing to me arrogance, karma, kama, krodha, mad, lobh. It's bringing to me mad when I attain what I have desired. Whether you attain what you desire or you don't attain what you desire, both ways it is ashuddha, because it is bringing you either arrogance or greed or anger or frustration or one of these ashuddhiya. So when the moment I say ये मेरा कर्म है, I become totally anxious first of all. ये होगा कि नहीं होगा, होगा तो सही होगा कि नहीं होगा, and that's the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Arjun put down his bow and arrow and he said, I am not capable of killing my kith and kin and my revered gurus. Bhagavan says, Arjun, take care. First of all, it is not you who is acting, the karta. Karta bhav, he is coming to that. Sannyas meaning the word as defined in Gita means karta bhav nahi hai, main nahi kar raha hu. But right now Bhagavan is describing karma. He is saying kamyanam karmanam nyasam. कर्म, निष्काम कर्म जब हम करेंगे, then I am not attaching the karma phal. So Arjun, you are neither the actor, the karta, nor is the phal a result of your effort. It is all ordained. Whether you fight this battle or not, Arjun, whether you lift that bow and arrow, Gandhi जिसका नाम था, whether you lift it and do your duty or not, the result of the battle is already ordained by me, the destiny is already decided, and it is all according to the design of karma of all these people. उनका कर्म भी इसी में काम कर रहा है, और वो अपने अपने कर्मों के कर्म फल या कार्मिक कॉन्सिक्वेंस के हिसाब से they will attain the gati, that is the destiny that they deserve. You, Arjun, have nothing to do with it. Please do not attach the मैं in it. मैं कर रहा हूँ. I am feeling a sense of despondency and despair about killing my revered gurus. No, it's not you, Arjun. Just be Nimitta Matra. Nimitta Matra Bhava Savya Sachin was his advice to him. Because in all our actions it applies to us also, just like Arjun. Whether we say कि मैं कर रहा हूँ और मैं ऐसा decision लूँगा तो क्या होगा, everything is actually ordained. All you have to do is not neglect the duty, because neglecting the duty at that time is going to hurt only and only Arjun. Because at that time he will sink into tamasic, because not doing one's duty is a tamasic kind of renunciation. It's a tamasic tyag. What should I do? I don't think any action is something that is worthy of me. So the moment we sink into that, like Arjun, we are neglecting our duty. But the world, sansar, irrespective of our action or inaction or non-action, is going to carry on. We are unable to figure this out because we have attached cause and effect of our action and our arrogance of our action and its result, arrogating the result also to ourselves. Action is important. भगवान is going to say why action is important. क्योंकि कई लोग फिर ये सब सुनते हैं गीता में तो कहते हैं कि अरे फिर एवरीथिंग इज प्री डेस्टिन्ड, तो एकदम फेटलिस्टिक है ये, तो अब फेटलिज्म में हम क्यों पढ़े? देन व्हाई शुड आई डू एनी एक्शन? व्हाट इज माय मोटिवेशन? व्हाई एट ऑल? So Bhagwan has to answer even that doubt a little later. But after we have clarified what is this tyag, because Arjun has asked a clear question, I want to know what is this tyag. तो हम किस चीज का त्याग करें? तो not objects, not people, not situations, but the desire for these things which is attached to my, because the desire is for my self-centeredness. So it's very simple. Actually, Arjun's question should be answered just by verse number 2. No, but Krishna very compassionately explains some more. And he says, verse number 3, chapter 18. Verse number 3 says, त्याज्यम दोषदित्येके दोषवदित्येके कर्म प्राहुर्मनीषिणः यज्ञदान तपः कर्म न त्याज्यमिति चापरे. All actions, त्याज्यम दोषवदित्येके, दोष जिसमें evil है, all actions have evil. Who says this? Some of the scholars say this. Declare some philosophers. Krishna again is not giving his final opinion. He's saying, these are the opinions of some rishis which I am placing before you, and you have to consider them before we find our conclusion. So some munis or rishis say that all actions, because action will attach to you as a papa or a punya. गुड एक्शन और बैड एक्शन, उसका भोग करने तो आना ही पड़ेगा. फिर कर्म बंधन, जन्म बंधन, फिर वही साइकिल, आपका मोक्ष नहीं मिलेगा. ऐसा करो, अबैंडन ऑल एक्शन. त्याज्य दोष वदित्य के कर्म प्राहुर मनीषिणः. कुछ फिलोसोफर्स ये भी कहते हैं, मनीषी फिलोसोफर्स. बट भगवान सेज, हिज ओपिनियन इज यज्ञ दान तप कर्म. हाउ कैन यू इवन एवर थिंक of abandoning yagya, service for people around you, for the family, for the country, for whatever. There has to be some yagya that is going on. और जो हवन और होम जो करते हैं, हवन and all, that is a symbolic representation of the yagya that we need to do in the world. So you can do it symbolically, which doesn't look very productive, or the yagya which in the modern context that Chinmaya ji has taken is the yagya we do in this world. अपनी जीवन की पूरी स्फूर्ति and शक्ति and धन उसमें हम डाल देते हैं for the service of others. तो एक तरह का एक हवन हुआ ना, it's like a havan, and we are putting all that into the havan for the good of others. So we'll call it the yagya of the modern world. Bhagavan says, बिना यज्ञ के, that's an action. Without that action, is it possible? No, you cannot give it up. Tap, which is the other one? Other one is tap. Tap is making an effort for the highest. We have seen in the previous chapter that tap is of so many kinds. Tap is a kind of self-discipline for progressing to the highest sukshma level of mind, sukshma, very subtle, so that I can reach Bhagwan. For that sukshmata, I have to have self-discipline of speech. 17th chapter, previous chapter, we saw tap of speech, of vak shuddhi. So usme we have to use words, even if the truth has to be spoken. The tap that I will be exercising, or one will be exercising, is the tap of chitta shuddhi. To keep my mind pure, I will do the self-effort and self-discipline of keeping it for hitam vada. Speak for the welfare of others. Speak in a way that creates happiness and harmony and quiet and serenity to the listener. So hitam vada and priyam vada. Say it in words that will not disturb the other. Priyam vada. We saw in the previous chapter priyam vada. And of course satyam vada. So even if it is satya, it doesn't mean that we have to lash out and say that, oh, I am speaking the truth, and use it like a sword that may hurt other people. The tapa that one is required to do, Bhagwan is saying, is the karma. You cannot give this up. Tap is the self-discipline of speech, of action, and of the body also, so that we are not overindulging in anything of sensory pleasures or food or drink or any of the sensory pleasures through which we ingest anything of the outside world. An overindulgence is a lack of brahmacharya, lack of self-control. So all that we have seen already as tap in 17th chapter. Bhagavan saying, how can you give up tap? It will become an animal existence. So karma has to be done, even though some of the philosophers say, जो भी कर्म करोगे, ये तो culprit है, इसका दोष है. त्याज्यम दोष अवदित्य के, उसमें दोष है. It's a double-edged sword. Paap or punya, it will catch you and it will fling you into another birth. Bhagavan says, Krishna says, be careful. Be careful. If your action, it is karma, yes, I know. But if that action is yagya, dan and tap, then न त्याज्यमिति चापरे, न त्याज्य, आप त्याग उसका कर ही नहीं सकते, because that is what makes the existence human. Otherwise, what would be the difference? So, निष्काम, अगर इसके ऑपोजिट कुछ लोग जो कहते हैं ना कि सब कुछ निर्धारित है पहले से और जो होना है सो ही होगा, तो हम फिर क्यों एफर्ट करें? दैट्स अ तामसिक वे ऑफ ट्रीटिंग कर्म. एंड in fact, agar nishkarma, what is the other word for it? Nishkriyata actually. Nishkriyata, meaning अब हमको करने में क्या फायदा? वो निष्क्रियता में जब हम पढ़ेंगे, then what is the difference between the most lazy person in the world, निष्क्रिय, totally निष्क्रिय, and a dead person. A dead person can't do any action anyway. तो ये निष्क्रियता, तब तो दोनों, ये dead person or the laziest person, they seem to be the highest candidates, the best candidates for moksha. उनको तो मोक्ष अभी से मिल जाना चाहिए, because उन्होंने एक्शन किया ही नहीं, और एक्शन न करने से उनको उसका फल पाप और पुण्य का लगा ही नहीं. No, that's a fallacious, it's a false argument. People choose this argument not to read the Gita, not to go into the depths of it, and not to try and understand the very logic of Krishna, which Arjun is now trying to understand. And that's why they dismiss Gita very, very often. You must have seen it. अरे ये तो आप फेटलिज्म की बात कर रहे हैं, सब कुछ निर्धारित है, कृष्ण ने सब कर रखा है, तो फिर हम क्या करें? चलो, आई एम फाइन, हम खा रहे हैं, पी रहे हैं, सोशलाइज कर रहे हैं. व्हाट्स रॉन्ग विथ माई लाइफ? आई एम गुड. मे बी वी आर गुड. ऐसा कोई बड़ा दुख भी नहीं आया है इस जीवन में, लेकिन इस जीवन से बिना हाईएस्ट ट्रूथ जाएंगे, दैट इज आवर लॉस, इजंट इट? तो पहले से ही वो बंद कर देते हैं, चैप्टर ही बंद कर देते हैं कि वो आप गीता की बात मत करो, बिकॉज इट बिगिंस विथ कार्मिक कॉन्सिक्वेंस, और कार्मिक कॉन्सिक्वेंस मीन्स सब कुछ कर्मों से निर्धारित है. यस, we still have control over yagya, dan and tapa. Yes, dan we have missed out. That is charity. These are three magic words which will purify the karma. Whatever action we do, if they are touched by the magic wand of yagya, tap and dan, of course, magnanimity, generosity, to give of ourselves, not only in dhan and property, but to give ourselves of ourselves in terms of giving our emotional attention and giving our first of all, there are many people who are just attention seekers. So giving just attention and energy and time, yes, time is precious. All these are sort of not solid things, not gross things to give, and yet that giving becomes important in all our work. Yagya, dan and tap. Tap is that discipline with which we conduct ourselves in our bodily discipline and discipline of speech and of course discipline of thought. So Bhagavan says, ये magic wand तुम अपने पास रखो सिर्फ, but कर्म करना नहीं बंद कर सकते. Arjun, you have to get up right now, and the Kauravas are facing you, and your own battalions are ready and raring to go. How can you not work right now? You have to get up, because the sansar, the whole fabric of sansar is to do some karma, but to do it in a way that you will be free and yet leave the world a better place, that you can do. Each one of you can do the duties that have been ordained to us as yagya, tap and with dan. Generosity, self-discipline, self-control, and here tap also means with a desire to reach the highest goal. That means like, even if I am laying the railway track, suppose I'm an engineer in the railways, and even if I'm just laying the tracks, okay, so my job is very mechanical. Okay, it may be mechanical, but everything that I do with the desire for perfection and to leave it there, and without saying mamatva, मैं कर रहा हूँ, मुझे इतना profit या salary या इतना चाहिए. Salary तो anyway it is part of your what you deserve. It will come to you, but there are other things which will contaminate your mind. So all actions, if they are done just as action, kriya. Because अगर मैं सब कुछ छोड़ दूंगा करना, because everything is now touching me with pap and punya, फिर बचा क्या? कुछ नहीं बचा. Every action then is going to be just kriya. If it is yagya, tap and dan, with generosity, with a sense that I have to reach the highest, that is my purpose. My purpose of my life is not to lay the railway tracks or to be the head of the department of literature in certain university, or to command the forces in the army, or even to just head a household, whatever our duties. That's not the end purpose of my life. I'm going to keeping the highest goal, and that swadhyay and that chitta shuddhi and mana shuddhi is my highest goal, because Bhagwan cannot reach me. When I do my work with that, it is called tap. Tap, putting in an extreme effort of austerity into any kind of work with the highest purpose. And dan, giving of myself, giving 100% of myself, that means whatever capacities and talents and energy and attention and emotional support, psychological, so many people need everything. Giving of oneself is a dan in the modern sense. Otherwise people can make it very mechanical and they say, oh, dan, ठीक है, हम तो हर महीने इतना करते हैं, and I call 2 pandits and I offer इतना ghee and chawal and gehu and I am happy. That becomes a mechanical exercise. Has it led to your chitta shuddhi? Yes, it has given you a small bit of a habit of giving. थोड़ा सा स्वभाव बन गया है कि I should share. But that sharing is also touched with a desire कि मैं शुभ काम कर रहा हूँ. That my शुभ काम is already that my is contaminating all my activities. So we have to be very careful even while doing so-called spiritual activities. So yagya, dan and tap is a karma na tyajyat miti chapare. You cannot give it up, says Bhagwan. So now it's easy. All karma which is touched by mamatva and kamana, desire and minus, is treated as karma. karma, and every karma leads to pap or punya. And mostly if it is with mamatva and with kamana, it will lead to pap. And here by pap we mean it will lead you to rebirth and all that. And without this mamatva and kamana, if the same work is done, it just becomes kriya. So we have seen two simple concepts. Now, the karmic consequence जो होते हैं ना, वो क्रिया में नहीं लगते, because kriya by itself is not shuddha or ashuddha at all. So I'm just doing the kriya. Why? Because it's an obligatory duty. It's a duty that has been ordained to me. So then, I'm sure it's in Arjun's mind, and what are these duties which I cannot do without performing. Verse number 3. Tyajyam doshavadityeke karma prahur manishinah. We just read this. Yagya dana tapak karma na tyajyamiti chapare. Verse number 3 is what we just read. You cannot give up yagya, dan and tap, daily ablutions. Karma in many of our scriptures has also been categorized as nitya karma, naimitya karma, kamya karma, and of course nishidh karma, which is prohibited work, and prayashchit karma. 5 types of karma. So if you see, anything that we do in this world has to fit into one of these 5. It has to. In our scriptures, there are no loose ends, कि अच्छा, yeah, ये exception भी हो सकता है, वो exception भी हो सकता है. Just like Sanskrit grammar, unlike English grammar, has one rule and no exceptions. English में क्या होता है कि एक rule बना दिया, उसमें 3 exceptions नीचे आ जाएंगे. No, it's not so unscientific at all. Therefore, the philosophy is also scientific. It doesn't have exceptions. And therefore, when you say karma will come into any or all of these 5 categories, then it is only these 5. You cannot name any karma which goes beyond these 5 categories. Once again, I'll name them. Nitya karma. Nitya karma is what we have. Let's call it obligatory duties. Nitya, of course, means daily, but it can also mean regular. It has been ordained upon the followers of Sanatan Dharma that these are your obligatory duties and you have to follow them daily. What are these? So, in that, of course, you have your cleanliness of the body, and also it has Sandhya Vandana, so you have to do your morning and evening prayers, which is called Sandhya Vandana, and you have to do Japa, so Nam Japa, which means setting aside some time for the mind to drop the sansar and take hold of the higher. In order to take hold of the higher, you need a naam, because we are gross, our minds are gross, so we need a naam and a rupa. So take the name of some god, that higher. For some time that jap has to be done and that vandana has to be done. These are things which have been ordained for every, let me use a very common word, for every Hindu practitioner. It can also mean, Shankaracharya of course had added his own list to it, saying that Nitya means you have to read the scriptures. Vedo Nityam Adhiyatam is what Adi Shankaracharya had said in Sadhana Panchakam, in one of his texts. Vedo Nityam Adhiyatam Tadumitam Anushtiyatam, which means that even reading of the scripture, just one shlok or one verse or one page, or that is ordained, you cannot do without referring to some page or some verse of the scriptures, and that has become nitya. Consider it as obligatory. Why are we saying that these are important? Because the final destination that everyone is looking for is liberation, and it can come through chitta shuddhi, mana shuddhi. That chitta shuddhi is the step towards liberation, and therefore nitya karma we cannot avoid. If we do, then we are taking that much longer to reach the highest. Naimitya karma are of course the occasional obligatory duties, like all the social ceremonies and marriages and funerals and and Janu activities, Janu, the Yagyapavit, that is the holy thread ceremonies, whatever the ceremonies which have been ordained in any of the let's say cultures or religious. Now, these functions, whether we like it or not, if we are grihastha, remember the monk is exempt from naimitya karma also. He doesn't have to come to marriage ceremonies or to funerals. But we as grihasthas living as sansari, this is compulsory. Nitya and naimitya, you cannot avoid it in society, and the nitya is for ourselves. What about kamya karma, the third one? Kamya karma, we are most familiar with this one, and 80-90% of our activities or karma go into this category of karma done for our own gratification and satisfaction or pleasure or man or samman or some kind of a gain. So I may do these actions for material gain. I may even do actions for spiritual gain. कि हम ये करेंगे तब हमको इतना पुण्य मिलेगा. Even that is there at the back of the mind. So kamya karma. Nishiddha karma, of course, is violence and anger and kama, krodha, envy and jealousy and hatred, and of course killing and stealing and lying. We need not even say what sinful activities are. Even telling a small lie is a lie. So you can't say big sin, small sin. Sin is a sin. So Bhagavan says these are nishiddha karma, nihit karma. You are prohibited. Okay, nishiddha karma, we are prohibited from doing these things. And prayashchit karma, when we realize, oops, I have done something which I should not have done. Even to realize, it takes a very alert seeker to even realize I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have gossiped about so and so, or criticized or judged that person, or spoken in hatred or anger or envy, or deprived someone of something because I wanted it, some kind of selfishness. I'm not even aware when my selfishness creeps in and I do some actions. But that awareness itself is great. When a seeker says, oops, I have made a mistake, I've done that action which was not selfless, then the prayashchit karma comes, the last one, fifth one. What is prayashchit karma? It is the kind of confession or atonement which you have in Christianity. Christianity, there's a booth in every church saying that you want to atone for your sins. The priest will tell you what to do. First, you have to confess. So you have to go to the booth and you have to confess to the priest. This is a physical manifestation of the same concept. कि प्रायश्चित करना हो तो पहले let's be aware of it. So maybe it's a good way when at least you have someone you can confess to. Now, प्रायश्चित कर्म में कई लोग they do some austerities and penance. हमारे एक स्वामी जी हैं अभेदानंद जी, he says कि अगर वो कभी गुस्से से बोल दे, because कभी कभी आ जाता है गुस्सा, तो और is human but not as a habitual action. कभी अगर उनको आता है तो he says, okay, next day I'm going to get up at 3 in the morning and I'm going to do 108 malas of गायत्री मंत्र या जो भी मंत्र वो चूज किए हुए. 108 माला जब तक नहीं जप लिया, 108 बार 108 मालाएं, तब तक हम नहीं उठेंगे. It is my penance, it's my austerity, even if my back is aching, whatever happens, it's my penance. It's a physical form. So he says, I accept such penance for myself. That is called प्रायश्चित कर्म. या फिर किसी को जब हमको पता चलता है कि I should not be greedy, like that lady who knew that she was spending money on her own whims and fancies. कुछ पसंद आ गया, एक साड़ी जरूरत नहीं है, पसंद आ गई, ले लिया, spending so much on myself. That lady who impressed Chinmaya ji said that at the end of the week she would write down her expenses which she had spent on her own capricious, on her own fancies, and an equal amount she would donate to charity, saying कि अब तो 2000 का हमने खर्चा है, 2000 I must give additionally for charity. That was her kind of penance for lobh, for greed, for temptations of the world. जब हम प्रायश्चित करते हैं तभी हमको it's only then that we can remember, it's only then that we can keep in view what is right and what is wrong. What is Nishid, what Bhagwan has said is not right, and what I need to do. I cannot even keep it in view. अगर कभी प्रायश्चित ही नहीं किया है गुस्से के लिए या envy के लिए या greed या over indulgence, over drinking, over eating, over criticizing, उसका हमने कभी प्रायश्चित किया नहीं है, तो फिर याद कैसे आएगा कि करना नहीं है? एक बार 3 बजे उठ के देखो, उसके अगले बार याद आ जाएगा, अरे ये तो मुझे करना नहीं है. That is a penance that we accept, or the seeker accepts for himself as a kind of. So nitya karma we have to do. Naimitya karma, social obligations, yes of course, if we are sansari people, not if we are monks. And kamya karma, 90% of it goes into mere liye hai. So that's why we are collecting 90% of karma also. क्योंकि हमारा कर्म ही थर्ड कैटेगरी काम्य कर्म में जा रहा है 80-90%, तो कर्म भी उतने सारे ही जमा होंगे ना, द बैगेज उतना ही होगा. नित्य कर्म में देखिए कितना है, हार्डली 1%, 0%, 0.2% कि जप कर लिया, तप कर लिया, संध्या वंदना कर लिया, एंड एवरी डे रीडिंग सम स्क्रिप्चर्स, या फिर टेकिंग टाइम टू स्प्रेड द वर्ड ऑफ कृष्णा and keeping his words in mind, some kind of self growth, 1%, 2%, हफ्ते में 1-2 बार. So the percentage of the effort we put into nitya karma is naturally the reward. The reward, see, the consequence, the cause and effect consequence of this universal karmic law is infallible. It is something that you cannot dispute or argue about its accuracy. Cause and effect is there. अगर हमको नहीं दिखता है, तब हम सोचते हैं कि this is injustice. मैंने कितना काम किया, मैंने कितनी पूजा अर्चना किया है, मालूम है? Then why did I get this terminal disease? Now that question and that anxiety and that self-torment comes to our mind when we don't know Bhagwan's law. And the law also states कि हमको 3 तरह से फल मिलते हैं. Since Bhagwan is talking about karma, let me just give me a few moments to go a little deeper into karma. कर्म के फल भी 3 तरीके से मिलते हैं. जब हमको ये नहीं मालूम होता है, तब हम कहते हैं कि भगवान आपकी you are unjust, you're doing injustice. Now what are these 3 kinds? The easy one is दृष्ट फल, जो दिख रहे हैं और सामने आ जाते हैं. मैंने कुछ काम किया और मुझे प्रतिष्ठा, मान, कीर्ति, and I got fame, name, approval, and I worked very hard at my business and I got a lot of profit and dhan. So कीर्ति, मान, स्वास्थ्य, धन, I worked hard on my daily habits, no drinking and no non-veg or whatever, and moderation in eating, whatever I practiced, मुझे स्वास्थ्य भी मिल गया. तो मुझे स्वास्थ्य और धन और कीर्ति और मान जब इमीडिएटली मिल जाता है, तो हम कहते हैं हाँ, ये दृष्ट फल है हमारा. दृष्ट फल मीनिंग विजिबल. But we must remember, sometimes the phal doesn't come at that time, and then we say, oh, what's happened? Because the phal also carries over as invisible phal sometimes later. How do you know? Because हमने अगला जन्म तो देखा नहीं है. क्योंकि कई लोग जिससे हम अगर कभी बात करें इस कार्मिक प्रिंसिपल या लॉ की, तो वो कहते हैं आपको कैसे मालूम, आपने कल देखा है? हाँ, हमने कल नहीं देखा है, लेकिन हमको आज दिख रहा है that all the things that we have today, तो अभी हमारे पास जो हाई एजुकेशन and good status और good स्वास्थ्य, and we all have actually decent amount of wealth and property and dhan and a very able and swasth body to be able to contribute to society. ये सब कहाँ से आया? I have not worked for it. I have certainly not put in the kind of contribution to deserve so much that we have got. So it is an invisible phal from some other life in the previous lives. ऐसे ही आज का हमने जो कर्म किया है, हो सकता है वो हमें सामने ना दिखे, and then we start having doubts and ashraddha in the very philosophy. But simply put, some of it is carried over as adrishta phal, invisible, and that's why it shows in different lives, and some of it is drishta phal, which is seen in this life. Doesn't mean that only good phal is drishta. Even bad phal can be drishta, like the Hitler, when he of course, I don't know whether he knew that he was being unjust, but when his actions were punished so severely, he was surrounded by all sides and by the allies. He had no choice but to commit suicide. The end of the story. So how much he must have tormented. Before a person kills himself, there must be so much of self-torture and torment in the mind. The mind becomes a mess of, like a hellish mess, just before anyone commits suicide. So his punishment was not the bullet wound or the death. His punishment was actually the torment that he may have gone through. And the adrishta phala, he will also get in some other lives in manifold ways. So that many lifetimes over, that person called Hitler may receive different kinds of births in very, very torturous, painful situations. Okay, God forbid, may his soul rest in peace. But I'm just saying that even bad things may be drashed right now. I may see the phal right now. I may not see the phal right now of my cheating, of my envy, of my anger. But it will be adrishta. It will be carried over for sure. Drishta and adrishta. One way in which phal, karma phal comes. Second way, this drishta and adrishta you saw was very gross, स्थूल लेवल कि हमको मान प्रतिष्ठा ये सब धन मिल गया, gross level. There is also a phal happening at the sukshma level. What is sukshma level? The level of the mind. In my mind, when I do good things, or when there is yajna, dan and tapa, effort for the higher. Effort meaning you have to put real effort to understand even the scriptures, or for your own evolutionary growth. Get up at 5 and do that dhyan and do that 108 malas. It is not easy. It's an austerity. Tap is an austerity, but not an austerity for gaining profit in my business. Tap is only austerity for gaining spiritual growth. If I do tap, I know that there is shanti in my mind, that I am more dhairya, more calm, there is more dhriti, dhairya, more forbearance and more stability, and I am not agitated over the slightest of provocation or slightest of words. That is my sukshma reward. Sukshma reward in the mind. No one can see the reward outside. कि अच्छा इनके मन में क्या चल रहा है. And of course the opposite is also true. In my sukshma world of the mind, my bad actions, my kama, krodha, mada, lobha, moha is going to lead to my own ashanti, my own agitation and my own asthirta. Sukshma reward mil gaya. That is your sukshma reward. And it can also be in the future. Okay, so it can be tatkalik or kalantarik. Kalantarik meaning it may go into several lifetimes. हमने जितने कर्म किए हैं, right now if I meet with some tragedy, it may be not for some ill that I have done, evil that I have done in this life. It could be the result of some evil done in previous. So kalantarik, the result may be kalantarik or tatkalik. It may be now. I may get it now. So kalantarik result is a bit like sowing the seed. A mango seed is sown and then it bears fruit after many years. तो अगर हमने कुछ बुरा काम किया, वो एक सीड की तरह भी काम कर सकता है and it will वो फलित होगा in some future life. कालांतरिक या तात्कालिक भी हो सकता है. फल can come in any form. And wait a minute, there is a third way in which all our karma is having its fruit, phal, and the last one is karan. Karan means causal. Causal means seed form for the future. That means that whatever I do right now, the good and the bad, is now acting like an impression or a sanskar of my swabhava in the future life. Because I am practicing it. Not kabhi kabar, but habitually. And therefore, if I am not watching it, it becomes my swabhava. People will learn to ignore it or just... but we cannot, the karmic principle cannot ignore it. That goes as our swabhava into our karan sharir. Karan sharir is a concept in Sanatana Dharma called causal body. It's not a body in physical form, but it is that causal seed concept which carries over from life to lifetime to lifetime. That means now we saw that the karma that we do, any karma that we do, the kriya itself is not causing any phal, but the motive and intention behind is causing me either drashta phal, immediately visible, tatkalik, or adrishta phal, kalantarik, maybe over a period of time, or some action that I may do today, and after 20 years somebody does me a nice favor. So I looked after someone or an old person today, and maybe in my old age someone looks after me. It could be the result of that, you know. Just as Draupadi, when Krishna's little finger was bleeding, she had torn off a corner of her sari instinctively and instantly without expecting a reward, for God's sake. Draupadi wouldn't do that. And she tied it to the little finger of Krishna. But finished. Kriya. No kamana attached, no mamatva attached, maine kiya. But it had a reward. When Draupadi needed a sari, that same sari ka piece, tukda, came back 1,000-fold in the form of that yards and yards of sari when she needed it the most in the beginning of Mahabharata, as you know the story. Krishna needed to protect her honor, and he gave yards and yards of sari. वो आ गया. हम समझते हैं कि हमको जो सुख मिल रहा है, जो अच्छी चीजें हमारे साथ हो रही हैं, वो मेरा कर्म है, मैंने किया है. अरे हाँ, किया होगा, but it is actually a carry over of the karmic phal, not immediate. And sukshma is the quality of our mind which we earn for ourselves. सूक्ष्म रिवॉर्ड मिल गया, कारण रिवॉर्ड दैट इज कॉजल और सीड फॉर्म रिवॉर्ड मिल गया, क्योंकि हमारा स्वभाव फॉर फ्यूचर वैसा ही बन गया. फल इज शोइंग इन सो मेनी वेज. एंड यू नो व्हाट इज द बॉटम लाइन? द बॉटम लाइन इज दैट वी ह्यूमन बीइंग्स इन दिस स्मॉल लिटिल duration of 80, 90, 100 years have such a small vision of this entire panoramic playing out of karma. We cannot have a big view of it, and therefore we have no measure to know कि हमारा कौन सा कर्म कौन सा फल ला रहा है और हम किस चीज का भोग अभी कर रहे हैं. From which past life या even from our present life कौन सा मेरे शुभ कर्म थे जो मुझे अभी फलित हो रहे हैं. There is no measure for us to know that. That is the secret which Krishna has withheld with himself. So all that is carried over. So हम पाप और पुण्य कभी कभी इतना कर जाते हैं कि उसका फल एक जन्म कम पड़ जाता है भोग करने के लिए. One lifetime is too short, and therefore in invisible form a lot of it does carry over also. And therefore we should never complain. अगर हमारे साथ बहुत बुरा होता है तो we say why me, instead of surrendering and saying yeah, it could be karma phal, it's okay. And जितने हमारे वर्स्ट मोमेंट्स अभी पूरे हो रहे हैं उतना हमारा नेगेटिव या पाप कर्म क्षीण हो रहा है. पाप कर्म क्षीण मीन्स it is reducing the burden of all the collected पाप, क्योंकि that collection will play out sooner or later, like it or not. तो वो कम हो रहा है तो हमको खुश होना चाहिए. अरे इस दुख में तो हमारे इतने पाप कर्म कम हो गए, because after it's over comes the turn of the punya karma. Punya karma also has to exhaust itself. तो पाप कर्म को exhaust कर लें. How? Through all the suffering that we go through and disappointments and frustrations and injustices and getting trampled over, whatever. So we are exhausting our pap karma. And punya karma, then it is the time of punya karma to play out. So we should be happy actually. So नए संस्कार जब बनते हैं वो हर प्राणी के बनते हैं क्या? We have talked about this over and over again. Other creatures do not have the capacity to create new sanskar. This is the only the urgency of it cannot be overemphasized. The urgency of the situation is कि अभी हम मनुष्य हैं, इसके बाद पता नहीं होंगे कि नहीं होंगे. This is the one chance I have to improve and change my sanskar. What is sanskar? Change from tamasic to rajasic to sattvic. Change from negligence and hatred, to ambition, to anger, to irritability, to shant, to forbearance, to titiksha. There is a progression. That progression also Krishna has talked about earlier. So we may treat this chapter well as Krishna's recap of the main concepts. And therefore, the sanskar can be changed. Other creatures do not have the capacity, only Manushya has the capacity. And therefore, some people, what they do, they start worshipping and saying ki main worship karne wala hu, so that I get punya in the next life. That is not change of sanskar. It is same kamana. हमको सुख की कामना से हम पूजा अर्चना यज्ञ तप क्या क्या करे जा रहे हैं, चैरिटी दान सब कुछ, लेकिन उसमें कामना पीछे छिपी हुई है. तो कामना इज द कल्प्रिट विच वी हैवंट टेकन केयर ऑफ. कांक्षतः कर्मणाम सिद्धिम यजन्तः इहम देवताः. 4th चैप्टर में भगवान ने कहा था कि कांक्षतः कर्मणाम, वो आकांक्षा के साथ ही होता रहता है कर्म, तो फिर वी आर स्टक. ओके, संस्कार नहीं बदलते. To change, why am I acting in this way? Why am I propelled to act even when I know anger is bad, or judging other people is bad, or criticizing is bad? Envy is the worst Duryodhan disease, I call it. Duryodhan caused an entire Mahabharata because he had no control over his envy. I know all this is bad, but I am propelled by it. क्यों? क्योंकि संस्कार बन गए हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि हमने उसको प्रैक्टिस किया है. And I have not bothered to make any prayashchit or tapas or make any self-disciplinary action. School mein to teacher would give us a rap on the knuckles. We are not able to give that rap on the knuckles to us and say, stop, this cannot go on, because we are harming ourselves. Sanskar nahi change hote. A lion will love his den. A swan will love to be in the water among the flowers and blossoms. A vulture will, uska sanskar hai, vulture will love to be amidst putrid carcasses, dead bodies, cemeteries. Vulture ka sanskar hai. वो कैसे change करेगा? In the same way, a man of a spiritual bent of mind will seek out the company of spiritual people. कि मुझे इनसे बात करना है, इनके साथ घंटों बिताना है, या that seeking out. Just like a vulture, you put him in a temple, he will fly high and land up again at the cemetery or the Shmashan Ghat. वो उसका संस्कार है. In the same way, a man of a materialistic kind will seek out the company. उसके taste इतने gross हो गए हैं that he will seek out the company of very materialistic people. वो भी उसका संस्कार बन गया है. हम देख रहे हैं संस्कार is driving us. How is sanskar formed? Because of the gunas. How are the gunas formed? Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic. Because of the karma. We know that karma is driving us. Why can we not use the same karma as our tool to transform our lives towards the higher? How? Bhagwan ne abhi to bataya. Yajna, dan, tap. Do the action without that feeling of mamatva or kamana. Actually, tadatmya, there's one more thing, slightly complex. There are 3 things in karma which are binding us to the earth. Tadatmya, kamana and mamatva. Tadatmya is my association with the sansar ki haan yahi satya hai. And I associate with it. I consider it as part of me, this sansar. That tadatmya, association with the world, is causing bad karma. Then my कामना, मुझे कुछ दिख गया प्रकृति में, प्रकृति से हम तादात्म्य बनाए हैं, प्रकृति में कुछ दिख गया, उसकी कामना हो गई, that's कामना. वो मेरा हो गया तो वो मेरा है, ममत्व. Tell me one thing which is around us which is not a product, around us as objects or as our accomplishments or as our achievements. Look around and let's think about it for a minute. Even I have to think about it. Is there anything in my life which has been without mamata, any karma, and without kamana? प्रकृति के साथ जुड़ने से ये 2 चीजें होती हैं, ममता और कामना आ जाती हैं. तो हम अपनी सेंसिटिविटी और अपनी अटेंशन और अपना इमोशन, अपनी सेंसिटिविटी जब लोगों को देना जान लेते हैं, दैट्स अ काइंड ऑफ दान. I want to learn about the highest. That is my tap. I want to make sure that whatever I do is part of my duty, my kartavya. And kartavya is just a kriya. Nothing will attach to me. अगर मैं हूं ही नहीं अटैच करने के लिए, तो ना पाप ना पुण्य कुछ अटैच नहीं होगा. दिस इज द फॉर्मूला, मैजिक फॉर्मूला फॉर मोक्ष, फॉर लिबरेशन ऑफ दिस मैजिक चैप्टर कॉल्ड मोक्ष संन्यास योगः. Verse 5 onwards, 4 onwards, we'll see next time. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamādāya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om.